Imagine discovering your boss's darkest secret and being faced with a choice: stay silent or expose the truth, even if it could ruin someone's life. That is exactly what happened to me, and today you will find out if I went too far by revealing that secret. It was supposed to be just another ordinary day at the office. My boss, as usual, was in his prominent position, controlling every detail with that authoritarian attitude everyone knew. He was the kind of person who made sure to maintain an image of perfection, someone who demanded the best from his employees and tolerated no mistakes. Throughout the time I had worked there, he always presented himself as an untouchable figure, someone who commanded respect and, at the same time, fear. But that day, everything changed. I was performing a simple task, organizing files on the company's server, when I came across a folder that seemed out of place. It was not labeled as something I would normally see, and that piqued my curiosity. Without thinking too much, I opened the folder. What I found inside left me in shock. There were a series of emails exchanged between my boss and another employee, and the content of those messages revealed much more than a simple professional relationship. They were involved in a secret affair, something no one, as far as I knew, had any idea about. But that was not the worst part. He was using his position of power to ensure she got promotions and raises, while other employees, who truly deserved them, were being overlooked. What seemed like a policy of meritocracy at the company was, in fact, a sham. My boss was manipulating the system to benefit this person while directly harming everyone else around him. My heart raced as I read the emails and looked at the evidence. It was not just a matter of personal betrayal. It was an ethical issue that affected the entire team. Many of my coworkers had been wronged because of the decisions he was making behind closed doors, and the worst part was, he continued to walk the halls, imposing his authority while hiding this massive lie from all of us. I stood there for a few minutes staring at the screen, unsure of what to do. How could someone who seemed so strict and severe be involved in something like this? And what should I do with this information? I knew that if I decided to expose what I had discovered, his life would change drastically. But at the same time, keeping this secret meant accepting that the injustices would continue. I was in a deep dilemma. After discovering my boss's secret, I could no longer look at him the same way. Every time he walked past me in the office with that air of superiority and control, I felt a knot in my stomach. He had no idea that I knew. But for me, it was impossible to keep pretending that nothing had changed. The truth was always there, hanging over me like a shadow. The weeks that followed were filled with anxiety. During the workday, I felt like an imposter, trying to keep up with the routine, but my mind was always stuck on that secret. When I got home, things did not get better. I would lie in bed and replay the discovery in my head, trying to find a way out. Telling the truth seemed like the right thing to do, but the weight of that decision paralyzed me. What if everything spiraled out of control? What if, by exposing what he did, I ended up destroying my own career as well? It was a moral dilemma that consumed me. Part of me wanted justice, wanted my boss's behavior to be exposed. But the other part feared the consequences. He had power, connections, and knew how to manipulate the people around him. Who was I to challenge someone like him? And more importantly, did I really want to get involved in something that could hurt not just him, but others in the company as well? The hardest part was dealing with the feeling of powerlessness. I knew that no matter which choice I made, things would never be the same. If I reported what I had discovered, his reputation would be destroyed, and there would likely be a huge impact on the entire company. But if I stayed silent, I would be betraying not just my colleagues who had been wronged, but also my own ethics. It was as if I were trapped between two opposing forces, and neither choice seemed entirely right. As the days went by, the pressure kept building. Every team meeting, every word he said, seemed loaded with hypocrisy. He demanded the best from all of us, while he manipulated the system for his own benefit. How could he continue to act like nothing was happening while I carried the weight of this secret? The injustice was suffocating, and every day that passed, I felt more and more cornered. But at the same time, the fear of being the one to expose everything made me hesitate. What if, By bringing the truth to light, I became the villain? What if, instead of being seen as someone who did the right thing, I was judged for going too far? The fear of losing my own career, of becoming a target, was just as strong as the desire to see justice done. This inner conflict followed me day and night, and the more I thought about it, the further I seemed from a solution. After weeks of being consumed by doubt, I knew I could not go on like this. The feeling of injustice was eating me alive, and each day in the office became more unbearable. I looked at my colleagues, many of them competent and dedicated, who had been wronged without even knowing why. They trusted the company, trusted the system, but the system was corrupt, and I was the only one who knew. I reached a point where staying silent was simply unbearable. I knew that, no matter the consequences, something had to be done. I decided that the first step would be to confront my boss. I needed to look him in the eye and understand just how far he was willing to go to keep up this facade. If I was going to expose everything, I wanted to give him the chance to explain himself, even though that left me feeling even more conflicted. I waited for the right moment. That day, when the workday was almost over, I asked to speak with him in private. The tension in the air was palpable as we walked into his office. I felt nervous, but at the same time, determined. He looked at me as he always did, with that expression of authority, completely unaware of what was coming. I took a deep breath and got straight to the point. "I know about you and her," I said, my voice firm, though my heart was racing. He froze for a few seconds, his expression changing immediately. He was no longer the confident, controlled boss I had known. I saw something in him I had never seen before: fear. He tried to brush it off, saying he had no idea what I was talking about, but I could tell he knew exactly what I meant. I showed him some of the emails and photos I had found. He turned pale, visibly shaken. "You have no idea what you're doing," he said, trying to regain control of the situation. "This is none of your business. If you want to keep your job, you better forget this ever happened." But at that moment, I had already made my decision. The power he thought he had over me no longer worked. I was ready to follow through with what I believed was right. "I won't stay silent," I replied, with a calmness that even surprised me. "What you are doing is wrong, and other people are being hurt because of it." He was silent for a few seconds, then he began openly threatening me. He talked about how he had connections, about the impact a report would have, not just for him, but also for me. He said that if I exposed his secret, he would make sure my career was ruined. But even in the face of those threats, I knew I couldn't back down. I had seen the truth, and there was no way to ignore it anymore. That very night, I left the office determined to move forward with the case. I sent the evidence to the company's compliance department, and to be safe, I also made an anonymous report to an external investigation agency. I wanted to ensure that even if they tried to cover it up internally, the truth would come to light. The days that followed were a whirlwind. News that an investigation had been launched spread through the company like wildfire. Meetings became tense, people started asking questions, and my boss, once confident and dominant, looked more and more cornered. He still didn't know I was responsible for all of it, but I knew it was only a matter of time before everything unraveled. The days after the report were an emotional roller coaster. I knew I had done the right thing, but that didn't make it any easier. The company dove into a full-blown investigation, and rumors spread quickly. No one knew who had started it all, but it was clear that something very serious was happening. Everyone in the office began to feel the weight of the tension, as if the air was thick with fear of what was coming next. Then, one day, my boss simply didn't show up. His absence was noticed immediately, and the whispers began. By the end of the day, the official announcement was made. He was being placed on leave while the investigation continued. Internal matters, was the official explanation. But, for those of us who knew more, the truth was clear. The mask he had worn for so long had finally fallen. Despite everything, I didn't feel relieved. I thought that by exposing what he had been doing, I would feel a sense of justice, of mission accomplished. But what I felt was a mixture of emptiness and uncertainty. The system wasn't as black and white as I had imagined. He had made mistakes, yes, but I knew his life was now in ruins. The connections, the power, the respect, all of that, which he had built over the years, crumbled because of the secret I exposed. And what about me? Well, my career continued. No one knew I was the one behind the report, but that also weighed on my conscience. I did what needed to be done, but did I go too far? Could I have handled it differently? In the months that followed, I kept reflecting on that question. The truth is, no matter how right I thought I was, there are always unpredictable consequences for actions like this. The company moved on, hiring a new boss, and the office routine returned to normal. But for me, nothing would ever be the same again. I had crossed a line, and now I was dealing with the repercussions, both external and internal. I did what I believed was right. But sometimes, I wonder if things could have been different. What did I learn from all of this? That the truth is powerful, but it can be devastating. And no matter how much we want justice, it never comes without a cost. Now I want to know, what would you do in my place? Would you report it or stay silent? Did I go too far? Leave your comment below and tell me what you think. And if you enjoyed this story, subscribe to ReactStories and hit the notification bell to get our next videos. Here, we always bring stories that make you reflect. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it, and I will see you in the next one.